What if the entire world went to war in present day? 95% of you guys aren't subscribed, so if you want to see more videos like this, which I'll be posting every single day, please subscribe. Let's see what would happen, and these are the alliances I have so far. Honestly, I feel like these make the most sense, as Europe would kind of all coalesce into the NATO alliance, and of course places like Mexico, while they might not seem like perfect US allies, they probably just would be on the US's side because the majority of the trade comes in from the US. Also places elsewhere, I don't really want to put them in because I feel like places in South America and Africa probably would just stay neutral for a while, but they can make their own thing. They can also make their own alliances outside of everyone else. So it's going to be very interesting to see what goes on. The first thing that happened is Lithuania was the first nation to be conquered, so the first NATO nation to go down. Singapore gets conquered by Malaysia. I mean, that would never happen in real life, but Czechia gets conquered by Austria because Austria technically isn't part of any team at the moment because they're not actually part of the NATO alliance. While I do think they would be on the side of the NATO alliance, the fact that they're not in NATO means they probably wouldn't be on any side specifically here, but they do get puppeted by Germany eventually. And it's very just interesting to see what goes on because here we have India joining the Beijing Pact, I guess is what we want to call it here, because I think China would be the leader here, and I think Pakistan and all these other people would be in here. But India joining the Chinese side is very interesting to me because I don't really think that would happen in real life. I think India would probably play both sides instead of just picking one side, especially when they have a very hated nation, two very hated nations on that side. Well, they very much don't like China, and they very much don't like Pakistan as well. So I don't really think that would happen, but I mean, it is just a fictional game, and let's just kind of see how it goes. But nothing really crazy has gone on so far, even between these two allies, because it just seems to kind of do like I don't know. I feel like nothing really crazy has gone on as a fight between the two different alliances. Like, yes, we did have that fight between Lithuania and Belarus, but it seems like everyone's kind of joining their own alliances around the world and not really having any big fights between these two nations. Like, there is a lot of people in this purple one, the Bolivia alliance. Well, I guess this is two different alliances, but now there is a fight between Finland and Russia. So that's basically NATO versus Russia here. And it does seem like a little bit went on, but nothing crazy as well there. Oh, there's a Cuban fight into America. This is kind of insane. How is Cuba fighting all the way into America? And they're really pushing. Yeah, America did not do well there. They just lost a lot of land to Cuba. And, you know, as the leader of NATO, if you're getting destroyed by I don't want to say Cuba is necessarily a random nation, but like Cuba is not a nation that a lot of people would expect to be amazing. And the same thing is happening to India. India is getting pushed by Sri Lanka. Just another insane one in its own right. And there are a lot of different factions in South America, and Ukraine, who's not even in an alliance, is now pushing into Russia. This is crazy in its own right, because why is NATO not in this fight? And wow, Ukraine just took a bunch of Russians' land, and there's also a bunch of revolts happening in Russia where Dagestan comes out of it, where I believe that's where Khabib's from. And you got Libya doing well. Just an insane turn of events there where I don't even know how Ukraine got all the way in there. But yeah, I guess they're doing well. You also have a little bit of fighting in the Middle East. The classic, Syria does capitulate. So rest in peace to Syria. And as like kind of these autocratic nations, of course they do have the majority of their land in like East Asia. There's basically nowhere else for them to expand, while the United States and NATO have a lot of alliances in Western Europe and like the Americas, and then you have some in East Asia as well. So it's very interesting to see kind of what's going down here. A lot of stuff is happening in Africa, and I'm really surprised that none of these other nations have joined one of the alliances. Maybe there's just too many people in the alliances because there's a ton of people all allied to the United States and that, but I don't know. There's just a lot going down in Niger. There's like just Africa in general is just a whole cluster of all these alliances, and the United States is getting pushed again by Cuba. I don't know how this is happening, but a lot of places are fighting back against their masters. But I mean, look how poorly Russia's doing at the moment. I don't know, just this World War III just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And Egypt gets conquered by Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has actually been doing extremely well in the Middle East. I mean, it doesn't seem like they've taken a lot of land, but a lot of their, allies or a lot of the other people in the nation or nations around them have kind of gotten destroyed by them. And now Bangladesh is pushing into India. I mean, this is kind of insane. I feel like the Chinese league out here has not been doing that well. I mean, there are a ton of other alliances to join for all these smaller people, like the Benin Commonwealth in Africa and all these other ones, but the Chinese and American ones are the main alliances, and it doesn't really seem like the Chinese one is gaining any new members. It just seems like they're slowly losing new members to other places, while the Americans have just kind of kept their same members and honestly are pushing into the Chinese league land. Oman gets conquered by Iran. Rest in peace. Also, just like, how is Chile? They're just in such weird spots in South America. It's kind of interesting to see how everything is going. And now we have South Korea is pushing into China. So this is a kind of big battle between NATO and the Chinese place. Also, a ton of places have revolted against France. But at the same time, there's a lot going on in East Asia. Like, now China is losing a good amount of land to all these East Asian places. And just a lot of course, is happening in Africa. But now there also is a fight between Cuba and the United States. This just continues to happen. But Cuba eventually does get conquered by Haiti. So I guess Haiti's technically kind of on the side of the United States, as they did just destroy the United States' biggest enemy in the New World. So it's going to be very, Comoros gets taken down, and South Africa in themselves, they look pretty good. Russia is fighting against Latvia, and a lot of these nations are fighting against each other. You have Poland here, you have Finland, you also have Turkey. They're all fighting, and nothing really changed in terms of terrain-wise. It's just very interesting to see that there hasn't been a lot of lost terrain. This war has gone on for so long, and nothing really crazy has happened. Now Ukraine is pushing into Europe. They're taking a bunch of land, and they just took Poland as a puppet. So Ukraine is working both sides. They're fighting against both sides and somehow winning. I don't know how this is necessarily happening, but I mean, they're doing well. And now Poland is fighting against both sides, and they might conquer Ukraine itself. It's just kind of insane what's going on here. But yeah, Poland is now on their own. They're not part of the NATO alliance. They're also not part of Ukraine either. You have places like Brazil doing extremely well in South America, and Spain is now pushing into Africa, into Morocco. So, that's kind of expanding the NATO alliance out here. But I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen. You see, NATO has a lot of Europe and the North America area, but everywhere else is kind of in their own alliance. But Poland and Ukraine just don't have an alliance for anyone else. And I think every other nation is in an alliance except for Poland. Oh, and the whole Chinese alliance just disintegrated. So they're all going to have to join their own new alliances and fight against the West. It seems like China and India and Russia just couldn't get along together, so they had to disband the entire alliance. They didn't want to work together. Niger, there's a ton of stuff happening in Africa, and now everyone in East Asia can now fight against each other. Oh, Poland. Yeah, Poland tried to fight back against NATO. You cannot do that. They just got absolutely destroyed. So now there's a bunch more land in the NATO Commonwealth area. There's also a ton going on in Africa. Wow, just insane amounts. Libya is still doing well. But yeah, it is kind of crazy that all these nations, okay, China is starting their own league. They're back with Mongolia, but they didn't want to work with India. So India is now in their own coalition against China and everyone. So it's very, Ecuador is pushing a ton into Brazil at the moment. Maybe they do conquer Brazil here, and now the United States is finally fighting back against Haiti, and Taiwan is pushing into they're pushing into China, but they're not a part of NATO anymore because Japan also kind of got destroyed. It looks like NATO might not be a thing anymore. Yeah, okay. So NATO is technically still a thing, in a way, just with the United States, but it as an alliance did fully officially go down. So technically NATO is not the main alliance here. There is a bunch of other ones. Kazakhstan just got deleted. Taiwan was doing so well for so long, and Taiwan is officially got conquered as a nation. That's just insane in its own right. Norway is going crazy in Scandinavia, and now China and Russia are fighting against each other. It did not really seem like Russia did that well, but Uzbekistan and everyone is taking land from China now, or from Russia now. So it's just insane that these nations that used to be allies are now fighting against each other, and they're all somehow losing. Romania in their own little alliance is doing okay. The United States and Canada are getting pushed, or just Canada, I guess, was getting pushed into by Iceland. So I don't know. This is very, very interesting. And now the United States and Mexico are having their own war against each other. And it looks like the United States is taking a ton of land, and just a lot is going on in Europe at the moment. Spain just took over Mauritania, and they're fighting against Portugal at the same time. China is getting absolutely destroyed by Vietnam. Vietnam and South Korea are taking all of China's land at the moment, and they might fully conquer China. It looks like China will be officially like taken down as a nation. So it might be a while before we get a winner here. I mean, everyone is fighting against everyone else, and wow, the Central African Republic they're doing pretty well. And I didn't even realize the United States is kind of getting destroyed in their own right. Jamaica and Mexico are both pushing into the United States. So it looks like the United States might fully get conquered here, and the United States and China going down in basically 2 successive pushes will be kind of crazy. And China officially is gone. They will not be coming back. The United States is barely holding on, barely surviving in North America. I mean, I wouldn't even know who to say the strongest nation is. Technically, I'd say it probably is Russia, but even Russia has lost a ton of land compared to what they started with. So, I mean, I'd say places like Tanzania are some of the best nations so far, and even places like Croatia. I mean, they look pretty strong in Europe. It's going to be very interesting to see who comes on top. And yeah, I really don't know. This is so weird to see that all these big nations, while they were part of these original alliances, now Tanzania is pushing into everyone in Africa. Like, look how good they look at the moment. The United States is finally fighting back against Mexico, but Jamaica, okay, they do fight back against both Jamaica and Mexico. And now Ukraine finally does get conquered. They were actually doing really well this entire game, and now they finally do get conquered. And it looks like Russia is finally pushing back against everyone else. They seem to be extremely strong at the moment. And it looks like they might get rid of South Korea. No, South Korea is barely holding on. They do hold on just barely. The United States is now pushing back into that land they used to have. Also, we have Morocco doing extremely well in Africa. And France. Oh, okay. France does survive. I mean, they're not necessarily in the best position. They're actually a puppet of Ecuador. I don't know how that even happened at all. I guess they technically used to have land in South America, but I don't know how Ecuador is France's puppet master when they're all the way across the globe from them. But now the United States fully conquers Mexico. That kind of took a while, but we also have Jamaica as the main player in like Central America, I guess, if you want to call it that. But it looks like they are getting kind of destroyed by Ecuador right now. Also, just the fact that Ecuador has land in Europe is insane in its own right. And whoa, Croatia is dominating. They just ate Romania. And at the same time, Uzbekistan goes down to Russia, and Russia is getting destroyed by Croatia. Whoa, Russia. Oh my God. Croatia is just going absolutely bonkers right now. Yeah, they just went insane. Them and Italy are on the same team, and I think I need to recolor these guys a little bit. A nice hot pink. But wow, that was insane. They just took over so much land. And now I'd say, I mean, the United States is kind of back at their original glory, but Tanzania is one of the strongest nations here. Them and their alliance are doing really well in Africa and have kind of taken over the entire continent and really are pushing into other places, while, you know, the United States and Canada, I would say, aren't really doing the best at the moment. You also have the United Kingdom Oh my God, the United Kingdom was pushed out of their land in the United Kingdom by Ecuador, and now they're pushing into Ecuador's land themselves. This is just insane. Russia is still alive and still probably one of the stronger nations. Yeah, technically they're easily still the strongest nation so far. So we have Ecuador. It looks like they might conquer Spain in Spain itself, and Croatia is doing extremely well. It is just really weird to see what's going on. The Solomon Islands are pushing into Indonesia at the moment, and they seem to be doing honestly pretty well. Tanzania versus Russia is happening. Tanzania versus Croatia is also happening. And it looks like Ecuador is kind of getting destroyed in their homeland. And it looks like they might only have... Okay. Wow. Croatia versus Russia going on. Oh, the United States getting absolutely destroyed by Iceland. Wow. And is this... How does Tanzania have land all the way in South America? I don't know what's going on. I guess they technically have a puppet here, so that's how they love the land. But, I mean, look at Tanzania's alliance. They also have Spain here. They've got everyone, and they're kind of pushing. They're doing extremely well, and they're pushing into Russia right now. And the United States is getting destroyed by Iceland at the moment. So that's just... I don't even know. There's so many weird nations and so many weird spots. Like, how is Ecuador in Europe and like a strong nation in Europe? I don't know. How is Spain all the way over in Africa and South America? No idea. This is just an insane game. And you have Iceland. It looks like maybe getting pushed back a little bit by the United States. No, it doesn't look like anything crazy happened there. Afghanistan is still doing well. We also have all these other players, like India is now also doing well, but Benin is a real strong superpower, I'd say, in Africa. I mean, they're pushing so much into Tanzania's land, and right as I say that, it looks like they do. It looks like they're fully going to get capitulated, so rest in peace to them. Croatia is pushing even more into the land out here. We also have Russia. Russia has the United States as a puppet. They also have a bunch of land inside the United States, but the United States is now a puppet of Russia. That is a crazy thing to say in real life. And these are the official like maps right now of the alliances. And I'd say right now, probably the strongest alliance would be Croatia and Italy right now. But honestly, any of these nations could still do insanely well. Spain is doing pretty solid with themselves. And this like Tanzania alliance is doing well as well. But like, look at Iceland. Like, Iceland's doing extremely well in Canada. And while Russia has lost a ton of land, they still are one of the strongest nations in the game. The Philippines are still doing well, but like, look how strong Croatia is. They've pushed into the Middle East. They've pushed into basically Asia here. So I don't know. It's going to be kind of hard to see if anyone can beat Croatia here. I mean, I think they're just kind of rolling into an extremely strong spot at the moment. Iceland looks like they could take out the United States, but now the United States is on their own. They actually are a part of the Iceland pact now. They're not a puppet of Russia, and Afghanistan is fighting back. So I don't know. It's going to be weird to see like a lot of these nations that were doing extremely well are now kind of turning the other way. It looks like Croatia is kind of getting destroyed by Russia at the moment, but okay. Russia's getting pushed into for sure. And Russia's ran out of gold, so anyone can basically take any land from them at the moment. Iceland is pushing into Canada with, I mean, they have a nice alliance out there. Brazil versus Spain is kind of another weird war, but I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense in its own way. The United Kingdom just had Croatia revolted against them. Somehow Croatia only revolted. Okay, I don't really know what's going on, but I guess they took land from the United Kingdom, and then the United Kingdom revolted against Croatia. And Croatia is getting destroyed by Ecuador in Europe itself. Like, whoa, Croatia just got conquered by Ecuador. They were doing so well for so long. Afghanistan also goes down at the same time. This is how the alliances are looking right now. I would say it probably has to be the Tanzania alliance that's looking the strongest right now, but a lot of these alliances are looking great at the moment. And still, anyone could win here. I mean, even the United States, they're still in an okay position, even though they aren't as big as they were before. Ecuador, is really playing this two-continent game. They really have taken over the like Spanish colonial empire. They have all of South America, but they also have a lot of Europe as well. India goes down to Tanzania, and Canada is pushing way into America, so they may conquer America. They don't, but America is still technically alive with Iceland. They have their capital in Hawaii, but it does not look good for America at all at the moment. Italy is now pushing into Ecuador. They're trying to avenge their friend Croatia, and now they have a ton of Europe itself, so they might be like the Roman Empire right now. You just have so many people pushing on so many different areas. The United States is now pushing into Russia from China and South Korea, and now the United States has a nice hold in East Asia. Ecuador is pushing into Russia in Europe, so that's kind of crazy. The United States is now doing a lot in East Asia, so the United States is kind of becoming themselves a huge power just because they're pushing into Russia's land, and Russia could get fully conquered by the United States. They don't, but this is kind of like a little flipping of the tables, because the United States was doing pretty poorly for a while, and now they're taking over a lot of Russia's land. And wow, Russia is getting destroyed at the moment. Russia is tiny. I mean, look how small they are. They have been a shell of their former self. Also, the United States and Iceland are pushing into Canada. It looks like Canada could be pretty close to getting conquered themselves. So I don't know. This is kind of just insane, because the United States was a tiny nation for a while, and it looks like them and Iceland might be, they just conquered Canada there. So Canada is officially conquered as a nation, and Russia itself is looking extremely small at the moment. So the United States is now losing land to Ecuador, but Ecuador is getting destroyed by Tanzania. Wow. It's just the way this game switches from just major extremes on both sides is amazing, because it just makes for a much better game. And now Ecuador is getting destroyed in South America by both Brazil and Iceland. Brazil has somehow survived a while, even though they've been doing pretty poorly for a while. I mean, you also have Ecuador is still here. They are a puppet of Iceland, but I mean, they basically have no land. Tanzania is getting destroyed by Spain at the moment. Wow, they're getting extremely pushed into. Tanzania is just losing all their land. Spain, insane comeback here. I mean, they were doing honestly pretty poorly for a while, and now they've got Brazil as a puppet, and they have all of Tanzania's land. And it looks like Timor-Leste, they are getting pushed against by Indonesia, who kind of came back in their own right. And Tanzania is now pushing into the United States' land. What is going on? This is kind of insane. And we have a push from South Africa here, who's allied with Iceland in the Reykjavik coalition. So it looks like right now there's basically two alliances, and it's the who's the leader of this alliance? It's not any of these guys. No. But you have like the Iceland coalition, and you have everyone else here, which is like Tanzania and Spain. And I don't know, it's going to be very interesting to see who wins between these two, because, I mean, wow, I guess Spain just went down, so it looks to be a lot favoring the Iceland American coalition. I mean, it really is just Tanzania and Italy versus everyone else. I mean, technically, South Africa here is on their own, and they're not part of any alliance at the moment, but I don't know. I feel like it's pretty unlikely that Iceland doesn't win this. The United States has really just somehow survived in just the weirdest areas. It only is California and Mexico, but it's losing all the land in East Asia at the moment that they just conquered from everyone. So it really is I'd say Tanzania versus everyone right now, but the United States and it looks like Iceland, they dissolved their alliance with each other. So it honestly doesn't look good for the United States. It looks like they are now a puppet of Iceland, but it seems like it's kind of Iceland versus everyone else, because Iceland hasn't joined an alliance and everyone else is kind of against them. So it will be interesting if they can pull it off. But yeah, Tanzania, I'd say, and Iceland are the main powers. And then South Africa is kind of like the third power that's doing everything else. And Tanzania somehow has land all the way over in America. They also are kind of getting destroyed by America themselves there. Russia's technically still alive, but I mean, they're basically just a Tanzanian puppet at the moment. Yeah, it is weird what's going on. We only have 8 nations left, but I mean, look, Brazil is now pushing a lot into Iceland. I mean, Iceland is kind of all over the map, but you have a Tanzania that's not even in Tanzania. It's basically just like a Eurasian confederation at the moment. I mean, maybe they can push back into Tanzania itself, but South Africa is basically all of Africa. And then you have like kind of a NATO player in Iceland who has a lot of Western Europe and a lot of the North Americas. So yeah, it's very interesting to see. Oh, South Africa has officially joined the like kind of NATO alliance here. And Italy officially does get conquered, so it is kind of everyone against Tanzania at the moment. I mean, they're losing a lot of land. Iceland is just taking kind of everything here. But they're also pushing into Indonesia at the same time. So will Tanzania pull it off? I kind of doubt it, but I mean, it does seem like they are taking some land. They are in a weird stalemate with Iceland right now. And it is going to be interesting to see these alliances. I mean, it's kind of everyone versus Tanzania at the moment. We're looking at the alliance map mode. It's basically just Tanzania and Brazil, which, I mean, I necessarily that probably isn't the strongest for them. And it seems like the NATO alliance here is going to win it all. I mean, Tanzania did pick the Russian side, and now Russia is officially gone. They got conquered, but yeah, it does seem like the NATO alliance, or the pseudo-NATO here, which is like Iceland and the United States, they clearly do seem to be the world power here. I mean, Iceland was officially a part of that NATO alliance at the very beginning of the game, and they've just somehow like pulled it off. Like they just took over a lot of Canada and the United States' land and have kind of become a huge power in their own right. And now they have Brazil as a puppet, and it looks like they might fully conquer Tanzania, which they do. And I think besides a couple nations, yeah, almost everyone is a part of this NATO alliance. It really just is down to Indonesia, and just, I guess, yeah, everyone's a part of this NATO alliance. So officially, I would say World War III just got won by the kind of pseudo-NATO alliance led by Iceland. They just took over everything, and they have everyone a part of their alliance or is like a puppet of them. So officially, the pseudo-NATO alliance led by Iceland did take over the entire world in World War